You're well fed, you got 30 or so bullets for your MP5 and are safely tucked on your back. You're headed along the road, keeping an eye out for a car or another player. Crack, bang, you're shot at. Legs are hit, you roll into a ditch. Get out the MP5 to fire back and they fire again. Dead. Respawn. Fuck. Fucking KOS. If only there was a punishment for players shooting on sight. Well, dear survivor, there is. It's called a humanity system. It was in the mod, but it's barely present in Standalone. I'm Uncuepa, and today I want to discuss how a humanity system could be implemented into DayZ Standalone. The mod's humanity system was quite simple. You had a number that would be affected up or down by your actions. Kill a survivor, your karma goes down. Give a survivor blood, your karma goes up. If your karma got too low, your character would change from a generic survival dude to an easily identified bandit. Tan clothes and a headscarf. You were not to be trusted. On the other end of the scale, if you helped enough people, you could get the hero skin. Less obvious than the bandit skin, but still identifiable, the hero sported a blue shirt and a winning smile. The system acted as a branding of your character's actions, but it was pretty easy to game. Bandits would knock people out and take their blood and give it back to them repeatedly. This would boost their karma, upgrading to a hero skin without all the work. Keep in mind that DayZ was the first survival game of its kind. Before this, there were Minecraft and its derivatives, so having a karma system to try and combat what is now a given in survival games, being KOS, was pretty Spartans to hold. This, however, only functioned visually. It offered no lasting consequences, because as long as you're okay with being a little bit more visible, there's not much persuading a bandit from being anything but a bandit. And once people learned the quirks with the zombies, there wasn't much of a reason for people to team up. Now, in DayZ Standalone, we have a clothing system. You spawn with a shirt, jeans, and a pair of running shoes. Along your journeys, you find better clothes that offer better protection from bullets, melee, weather, give you more inventory and quick bar slots. A general progression of appearance takes place. Civvies, hunting, military. The further along the progression, the better your situation. You generally become more camo, gain better bullet protection, hold more gear. Lots of military items offer water resistance or straight up proofing. But given that better geared players generally do not want to lose their stuff, they will tend to kill. Of course, bandit players tend to wear masks, helmets, or balaclavas, more often for intimidation or cool factor. This is the opposite from the mod, where you were at a disadvantage looking like a bandit. In Standalone, where you can't force a look onto a player, as instead the player chooses how they look, you need to disadvantage yourself as to not threaten other players. If a humanity system were to be implemented, I would not like this system to change, but it could affect it somewhat. Let's talk about the only real system Standalone does have to punish killing. The condition system. An idea straight from Dean. Every item has a damage condition. Pristine, worn, damaged, badly damaged, and ruined. Pristine items often function better. The worse condition, the worse protection or use it offers. As an item is used, the more damaged it becomes. Damaged knives only harvest half the meat that a pristine knife would. Damaged guns are more likely to jam. Then there's ruined, where the item is no longer useful. With the exception of ammo boxes, which can be opened, pristine rounds and clothing can still be worn to carry items, but offer no protection from damage. Ruined items lose all benefits and usefulness. This means that a trigger-happy player can spray you down with their entire SKS clip, and they have likely ruined everything useful to them, completely wasting their time and ammo. It costed that player 10 bullets and they gained nothing. That's their punishment. It's a pretty lousy punishment. It rewards a good shot and discourages wild shooting, but overall it just means two survivors can startle one another, one dies and the other one left on the edge of alive, and what does he get? Most of this stuff is ruined. Nothing on the dead body to help. And this is not uncommon. You are forced to fight back, lose half your gear, and your attacker was lit up, leaving you with fuck all. It does drive what would be otherwise endgame characters to re-enter the loot-up process, maybe forcing them to a city for medical supplies, but it's a pretty weak system for combating KOS. What we need is a system that both punishes trigger-happy folk and rewards care, effort, and investment into a character. I am suggesting sanity. Mental state. There's one survival game I know that does something similar to what I'm about to suggest. Don't starve. The more time you spend alone eating bad food and killing creatures, the worse it gets. You get chased by shadows to represent fear, and they can manifest if let decline too far. The only way to help yourself is to get your life straight. Pick some flowers, cook some food, make a friend. It's much like the karma system in that it's just a meter that ticks up and down based on your actions, but everything affects it in some way, meaning your actions matter. Drastic actions can have dire effects, and careful actions and the best. So Uncuepa, how can we combine all three into the perfect system? What is your totally original idea? Mental health. Most actions should have an effect mentally. Let's get up on the screen our current health systems. Health, blood, shock, bone, energy, hydration, and temperature. When health is 0, you're dead. When it's full, you're healthy. When blood is below 500, you're unconscious. You cannot wake up until that's back above 500. When it's 0, you're dead. Between 500 and somewhere around 4,500, you go from black and white to full colour. Shock is delivered with damage. Weapons like buckshot, shovels, bats deal a lot of shock. If your shock is higher than your blood, you go uncon. Shock declines pretty fast with time, but you can perform CPR to take off chunks, or use an EpiPen to reset the shock to 0. Bone is a mysterious stat, but it seems to decrease when you take damage. The worse your bone health, the more damage things do. Much like blood or health, once it hits 0, you die. There is no way to tell if you have poor bone health, so use splints and morphines to reset it to full. Energy and hydration are increased with food and drink, obviously. Dry foods give energy but decrease hydration, sugary drinks give a little energy with their hydration, and balanced foods like fruit, beans, cooked meats give a balance of both. At the low end of this scale, you starve or dehydrate and begin to lose health and blood rapidly. Next is hungry, thirsty, or no message at all. During this period, nothing is happening. Above those, you become hydrated and energized. In this state, you'll begin to regenerate blood and health. Lastly, temperature. When hot, you go through your hydration faster. Hypothermia, and you'll dry yourself out quick. On the other end, cold, you start to shiver, which makes aiming hard. Too cold, you get hypothermia, where blood and health begin dropping fast and you got a short time to get warm before you drop dead. Illnesses like cholera, tetanus, and salmonella all have effects on these systems. Kuru less so, that just kind of makes you go nuts and twitch like an idiot. I would like to add that in the upcoming 0.63 update, it also adds a stamina system. This is affected by weight, energy, and injuries affecting your mobility. I might mention it later, but we're not 100% sure on how to work yet. Mental state. So we have these base systems that can affect and be affected by our mental state system. We will treat mental state like hydration and energy with different thresholds. You have up to 5,000 mental health. We will categorize these as so. 5,000 to 4,000 is heroic. 4,000 to 2,000 is healthy. 2,000 to 500 is troubled, and 500 to 0 is banded. Players. Players are the reason DayZ is compelling. Players are far more dangerous than any other threat, and they make the stories that define DayZ. In the mod, it was the actions with other players that affected your humanity, and so with my idea it does too. The effects of killing a player negatively impact your mental health, and the severity of that impact are determined by your mental health and the mental state of your kill. Let's use a bell curve. At the extreme ends, the effects of murder are lessened. When in the bandit state, killing barely affects you at all, as you are already far too removed from reality. In the heroic state, because you believe what you're doing is right, it again wouldn't affect you much. In the middle is where killing would have the most effect. But the applied effect might be more or less dependent on the target's mental health. Killing a healthier player affects you more. Since healthier players will be less likely to be killers, it would affect someone more to have killed them, whereas killing someone who is troubled or bandit health due to cannibalism or banditry may deliver no negatives or even a heroic positive. Regardless, killing isn't positive. This gives incentive for leaving someone tied up or on the edge of death, reviving someone and letting them go as opposed to executing. So how do you gain mental health in regards to other players? If you're murderous, banditry like tying people up or poisoning them could give mental health and entertainment to try and sway them from straight killing, but the smarter option is to incentivize helping others, giving meds, feeding other players, or just being in proximity and using VoIP with other players could give a little regeneration to mental state. We humans are vocal and social creatures after all, and even in a hostage situation, talking can alleviate stress. But how will the other systems play into our mental health system? Low blood and low health would leave a player lethargic and in pain. broken bones in cold temperature are extremely uncomfortable. All could affect mindset, but the area I would love to focus on is food. Better tasting the food, the happier it makes you. Things like sugary drinks, canned food, and fresh fruit would all give a small boost to mental health, whereas uncooked rice, dry cereal, raw foods, not so much. Cooked foods like fried steak, baked apples, or even cooked rice using the cooking pot and some water could give way more mental health in return. But the variety of food you consume could matter too. Nutrition. Now I know what you're thinking, this is overcomplicating it, but nutrition would be a background system much like bone or shock damage. It simply goes up or down based on the number of different foods in your stomach and gives a use to the useless vitamins. The wider variety of food you eat, and the healthier the food, for instance boiled chicken rather than fried, or a fresh apple versus a can of Sprite, the higher your nutritional value. To offset this, you could eat a vitamin, and the benefit of good nutrition, a slightly bigger stamina bar, slightly faster health regen, better protection from melee or the cold. Subtle things that go a long way. And all it takes is to eat some fruit and veg or find a bottle of vitamin tablets. Just something to encourage players to loot around for different foods, encourage cooking existing foods, and give a purpose to the most useless item in the game. This is a great start, but we need more to our system than just food making you happy and cold weather making you sad. To create a compelling mental health system, we need to add a few more, like comfort, entertainment, and addiction. Comfort. Don't know if you know this, but wellies aren't that comfortable. If you ran for 4 days straight wearing wellies, you'd have blisters. But unlike DayZ, I wouldn't punish a player directly for this decision. I would reward good decisions in the case of comfort. Wearing hiking boots or Converses, gain a comfort boost. A nice warm coat instead of a soggy t-shirt, gain a comfort boost. It would fluctuate all over the place depending on dryness, warmth, softness, and to that, doing things like sitting by fires would deliver much more comfort than, say, a heat pack. This means things like temperature, hunger, broken bones and such, these existing systems can affect comfort. Remember before when we mentioned cooking foods and banditry? Well, warm and delicious foods could easily increase comfort. Who doesn't love a home-cooked meal? And let's say you're a bandit and your mental state is in the shitter. Maybe wearing things like face masks, the clown mask or the balaclava can give comfort and alleviate some of the negatives of poor mental health, giving a benefit for a bandit to wear these items. Now, let's get illegal with drugs. We'll talk about medication later, but for now, cannabis and psychoactive mushrooms. They're in the files, growable and forageable respectively. Take a knife to the weed, grind it up, grab some paper from an ammo box, roll a joint, smoke that roach, you fucking delinquent. For a short time, we get a huge comfort boost, possibly saving a mentally destroyed character. Smoking weed or eating mushrooms could make the colours super vibrant for a short time. I'm sure the appeal of these would wear off after a month, but DayZ is a game about options. But those comfortable, relaxing moments in the apocalypse wouldn't quite be what they are without music. So let's move on to entertainment. The apocalypse would be boring and tiring. Distractions are important in times of stress. That's why instruments and the radio scene in 5.5 Experimental would be a smart addition.
Yeah man, fucking magical. Maybe the rest of the world isn't affected.
A radio and guitar are pretty loud, nearby people would be able to hear your music, so choosing a safe camp location would be important. But those immersive moments of your boy on the sixth string while the lads cook up a storm would create an immersive atmosphere, a nice break to the running, one that isn't silent. You would build up entertainment from zero, much like shock, but positive. The higher your entertainment and comfort, the slower your mental state degrades. Both the comfort and entertainment systems would act as a buffer for your mental state. These would keep you happy for a short time. Addiction. Addictive substances wouldn't be treated like a health bar, but instead like an illness. An attribute tied to your character. Let's start simple. Cigarettes. You find a 40 pack but only 10 are left, much like the box of matches or painkillers. Smoke one, get a hit of dopamine, your comfort and mental state spike and you're hunky-dory until you crash. The effects of the crash would start small. Let's say our mental state is around 2100 out of 5000, close to slipping into troubled. You think you're about to get into some PvP, so you punch a dart. That's Australian for smoke a cigarette with great pace for our international viewers. It spikes up to 3600, good stuff. Buzzing, they say. But then after that comes the crash. After 10 to 15 minutes or so, your mental state drops from 3,600 to 2,600. Short term, we gained 1,500. Long term, only 500. In addition, smoking has caused you to lose some health. Not much, but enough to remove your healthy status. Smoke another and we're up to 4,100. Temporarily heroic. We're feeling pretty good, but another 10 to 15 minutes we crash. This time we lost 80% of it, down to 2,900. Third time, 4,600, but the crash loses 100%, back down to 2,900. And keep in mind, during that 40 so minutes, we've lost some mental health, back down closer to like 2,800. From that third one onwards, you're just boosting for a short time and then losing it all. You can keep smoking to try and maintain that level of mental health, but eventually you're doing more harm than you are good. But next comes the surprise. After that third cigarette, you notice an icon appear above your mental health status. You're addicted. You have a choice to make. Regularly smoke to prevent decay and accept the mental health hit, or try and ride out the addiction. Your character during withdrawal begins losing mental health faster. You shake and you regen health and blood slower. We can apply the same method to things like morphine. In the future, morphine will be the only instant fix to your bones, whereas splints will become an overtime fix, something like 5 to 10 minutes before you're back to full mobility. Let's expand this by adding addiction to morphine. Use it once, get a boost to comfort and mental state, which will degrade. But if used twice, then you can become addicted, using morphine regardless of injury just to avoid the shakes. Lots of medication could become addictive. Painkillers, amphetamines, antibiotics. Not just drugs though, we can apply this to a lot of things like human meat, maybe just killing in general. Murdering could lead to bloodlust. The addiction system could force players into sticking to a playstyle rather than flip-flopping between hero and bandit. So far I've only alluded to the systems that go into mental state. It's time to talk about how it affects gameplay. How will being bandity or heroic matter? Firstly, visually. Much like the mod, there should be a way to determine one's mental state by examination. We're not going for super bright, I'm a bad guy like the mod, but something a bit more subtle. Posture and expression. Heroic players should have great posture, a bright and alert facial expression, and idly exude confidence, checking their weapon, stretching, rubbing their shoulder, the fiddling of a confident person. But a troubled player should wear a frown or even a bored expression, looking over their shoulder, scratching their ass, raising weapon towards enemies that aren't there, the fidgeting of a sketchy person. Beyond that we can go deeper. Slouched shoulders for poor health, broad shoulders for good health, a strut in the heroic walk and a scuttle in the bandits. Something to look for when approaching someone. Say you stalk a guy for 10 minutes, trying to find out his true character. Then you see him stop to cook some food, and while sitting by the fire he slouches and looks over his shoulder. This guy is probably not to be trusted. But instead he stretches at his back, sits comfortably. You can probably approach safely. These character attributes can even play with the proposed journal system, a journal or wallet attached to a character. The distance travelled, people met, chickens eaten. The lifetime of a character would be documented for the player and whoever finds them post-mortem. The true colour of that character would become clearer when that killer finds out that a deceased was a rampant murderer or a brave hero. But for this system to have any impact, it needs to affect, but not annoy, the player. Punishment for entering bandit levels of health would likely cause shakes. The shaking we have from cold right now is eccentric, and the cannibal twitch is decent, but it's very specific to that, so I wouldn't want to copy either of those. Something like a shiver on inhale would do fine. Other basic functions should be affected. One common attribute of poor mental health is a lack of appetite or poor physical health. Things like slower health regeneration or more prone to cold weather would be good cons. As a trade-off, bandits require less food, making a bandit less needy for upkeep, but as a trade-off, far weaker. We could even see a return of the blurry vision of old. Okay, maybe not that bad, but like a subtle vignette. Closer to zero, the more reason you have to turn around, a limiting periphery to say, hey, you fucked in the head, you need to get help. On the other side of the coin, heroes. What benefits do the good guys get? Perhaps a little bullet resistance, a little more stamina, faster health regen, faster bandaging or salining. A lot of these attributes could be soft skills, but why not tie the soft skills to actions done? The trade-off could be sway is a little wider, or maybe the character goes through their food and water a little faster. The balance between non-factor and overboard when it comes to these effects is a fine line and would require a lot of testing and work. If anyone has any suggestions for pros or cons for both good and bad mental health, let me know. So let's recap. We would add on to our health system, mental health. Similar to food and drink, it has thresholds. At the lower end, a player shakes, becomes weaker, but requires less upkeep. At the higher end, they become needy, but stronger. Mental health would affect posture and expression of a character as a brandy of one's true intentions. Comfort and entertainment, delivered by clothing, food, and music and psychoactives, acts much like shock in that it builds up from zero to play with another stat, in this case mental health, slowing the degradation or even improving mental health. Addiction, giving items risk-reward and long-term effects, expanding on the medical system in the game. Nutrition, expanding the cooking system and encouraging scavenging a variety of different foods in the game for good mental health and faster health regen. But most of all, punishing killing without reason. I think the addition of this mental health system would expand to what it means to be a survivor. Actions from the coast to Tizzy, all affecting how a player functions, determined by the food they eat, the clothes they wear, the people they meet, affecting how a player is perceived and trusted, how a player plays, something more than ruined clothing. My name is Uncuepa, and that is my concept for a DayZ standalone humanity system. Thanks for watching. If this video got you in the mood for DayZ videos, be sure to check out my channel for story-based DayZ videos, including a series from the Village server. If you would like to see more of these video essays in the future, suggest topics to me on my Patreon page. Just $1 helps a lot. And subscribe if you want to. Bye!